Okay, check. Full disclosure, I've already done all of this and forgot to hit record in Pro Tools. And it is 1:45 on Thursday evening, 1 a.m. There's been some confusion as to what the Nebula Advanced Overdrive actually does. I have green tape on the pedal to section off the 3 separate components that are in this pedal. First off, tone. Right now, I'm just plugged into my Rev Generator 120 with the gain at less than half on the purple channel. Bright is not engaged. Fat is. I'm trying to fatten the sound up and make it as muddy and low gain as I can. So that's how the amp sounds. If we were to unplug, go into the front end of the Nebula, and then into the amp, this is the sound that we get. Now, this is volume, tone, gain, set to 12 o'clock, bite, clip, and tight modes in the middle. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the second of 3 settings, the second most drastic. That's just where I've got everything. It's just easier to remember if everything's in the middle. So that's the overdrive section of the pedal. With the first part of the pedal, you get a 1-band parametric EQ. I'm going to turn the gain on the pedal down. I'm going to set what that... So with the 1-band parametric EQ, you have a voice, which is basically a frequency. Within that frequency, you can adjust the width of the knee to have it super focused or a little bit wider, so it affects the other frequencies around that targeted frequency. And then the plus minus, it's just the gain, the amount of volume that you're dedicating towards those frequencies. So that part of the pedal feeds the middle part of the pedal, which is the overdrive. So you can adjust and tailor your mid frequencies before it even hits any of the gain and volume controls on the overdrive section of things. I'm just gonna kind of go through and give a little bit of a frequency sweep on my D string. I find that the D string has both a lot of highs and a lot of lows to kind of easier describe what the EQ is doing. So it kind of gives you that cocked wah sound, right? You can add as much of that or as little of that as you want. It doesn't even have to be on. When the plus minus of the EQ is set to noon, it's just not feeding any additional gain or frequency to the overdrive section. So just keep it at noon. If you don't want to add any more mids to your sound, just keep it at 12 o'clock. The other 2 knobs aren't going to do anything. But if what I recommend is kind of finding a frequency that you want to highlight. I like the upper register of the mids a little bit more, and slowly bring it in as you're chugging or doing whatever. It's easier to chug. So that's the overdrive and EQ section of the amp. That is front end of the amplifier. The very cool thing about the Nebula, the last third of the pedal, is actually, it's a 4-cable overdrive. So the pedal needs to go into the effects loop of an amp in order for that section to work. What you can do is reintroduce the low end that normally gets filtered out before your guitar hits the front of the amp. Overdrives tend to cut out a lot of low frequencies, and it makes it sound more aggressive by sending more mid and treble frequencies into the front of your amp. With the muscle section from the Nebula, you reintroduce the lows that normally get cut out of your signal chain back into the amplifier's power section. I'm going to take 2 seconds and plug that in. No cuts, not doing any cuts. So from the amplifier effect send, I'm going to take this green cable, green for go, and we're going to go effects send, and take my other green cable and go into effects from effects send on the pedal. Anybody that's familiar with boating, red, right, return. So I'm going to go effects return, and where's the other cable? Effects return. So now I have the Nebula in the effects return of the amplifier. The very cool thing, I mean, there's a couple cool things, but one of the cool things is now you can reintroduce that low end. This is what it sounds like. This is what it sounds like without, I'm just going to turn the effects loop off. So all the same frequencies front end, but I can reintroduce the low end with the muscle knob. Now you want to be subtle with it. You don't want to add too much low end back in. It'll take away from the aggression, but it's there if you want to. It depends on kind of what frequencies you're scooping out and what you want to reintroduce back into the amp. But it also has a master volume knob. So if you have a single channel amp or a non-master volume amp, this also controls the loudness of the pedal overall, not the volume going into the front of the amp, but the returning volume before the power section. You can add a volume boost, a volume drop, really whatever you want to use it for, but basically it's creating a synthetic 0.5 or a second channel in your amplifier just by engaging the effects loop. I hope that has eliminated some confusion as to what the Nebula was intended to do, what it might be doing for you already if you own it, or if you're on the fence about buying one. This is what it does. It's basically 3 pedals in one for not a lot of money. I mean, you get a 1-band parametric EQ, a volume, tone, gain, overdrive with 3 different bite, clip, and tightness levels, as well as the muscle and the master control in the effects loop section. So for $350 Canadian, you are basically giving yourself any overdrive sound that you can think of, as well as adding master volume control to an amplifier that might not have it, like a 5150 or something. I hope this has put to bed some of that confusion, and you should get one.